Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me. First of all, I would like to know, did you enjoy so far the conference? Yeah. Good. Because actually you are part of a community, and I will talk about the communities and why it's important, open source communities in robotics. My job at the foundation is I'm in charge of research projects. And usually when somebody asks me what I'm doing at the foundation, I tell that I help people sharing their code with the rest of the world. And usually the next question is, why do they do that? Does it make sense? I mean, my friends, my families, my other colleagues outside of Eclipse, and I try to explain that it's just because it's profitable for them. And they think also it could be profitable for others. So I will go a little bit in details more on that and explain why it's profitable, and I have two stories to tell you. First one is a Bosch story. I will start with 2015, when Bosch actually decided to be a strategic member for the Eclipse Foundation. Being a strategic member for the Eclipse Foundation, it means that you are part of the board, you give the main direction of the foundation, you can fire the CEO, Mike Milinkovic, if you want, and actually you pay $250K per year to be part of this board. So it's lots of money, and Bosch doesn't spend like that money. So why they do that? To understand, we need to go through the whole history of Bosch at Eclipse. It took them 10 years to reach this situation of 2015. Initially, actually, I met these guys around 2000, 2005. I was involved in some IBM projects with them. And at this time, they were not authorized to use any open source components in their software. No way. They were completely denied anything like that. And then they started hiring some co-ops to work with them. And of course, the co-op didn't have so much time. He had only 3 months project, for example. And these guys were obliged to use some open source stuff they used to learn at school. And they realized that in 3 months, these guys could achieve pretty amazing projects, pretty stable, reliable. And they started to be interested in this kind of frameworks they were using. And they start using also for prototypes, only on prototypes, or not on products. And then they say, okay, let's see what's going on behind the scenes. So can we interact with the guys who developed this framework? Can we ask him to improve something? Can we ask him to fix something else? And they realize that there is somebody behind the framework. And the guy reacts pretty well, and not only one guy, but several guys. So again, say, wow, interesting. So open source is not just a code list which is like that, placed somewhere on a server, somebody is taking care of that. And they finally say, it's pretty useful because finally, when we get a new version of this code, we test it. We test it for him. For us, ourselves, of course, but also for him. So maybe some of our pieces of code that we have in our labs, maybe we could share it also in the open source, and we can have some gain, just because we not have to test it, because it tests, we know it takes lots of time. Maybe we can get some cool enhancements, cool new features, so they start to be champions for the open source. And it's the first journey of Bosch, and it took them 7, 8 years to reach this position where they feel really comfortable with how a community works. And then they decide to skip to the next level, to a business level, to say, now let's put part of our business strategy to base it on open source. And it's what they did in 2015 when they decided to join the foundation as a strategic member. So here's a quote from Stefan Werber about Eclipse Foundation and the Eclipse community, but it's interesting to read it, and I can read it for you with my French accent, but he used to say with a German accent. So no community can realize the IoT on its own within the Eclipse community through the contribution of many IoT developers. Tools and standards are created on an open platform that many companies can benefit from for their IoT applications. So today, when you want to build an IoT solution, what you realize that you are in front of, if you want to start from scratch, you have no legacy system, nothing. I want to start this kind of business. You are in front of more than 450 different IoT platforms. You have to choose. 3 years ago, when I made this slide, it was 360. So the number is growing. Bosch thinks that at some point this model will blow up. And at some point only few will survive, and only the guys who are based on the GAFA technology will survive. Unfortunately, Bosch doesn't want to depend on the GAFA guys. So they say, and we cannot fight them. Even we are pretty big, compared to Google, Amazon, or whatsoever, we cannot fight them. So how can we fight them? And here's a slide that they use. They want to build a swarm with the open source, just to be as big as other big fishes. Not to eat them, but just to be able to be at the same level as they are. And the only solution they find is going open source, because through the open source, you can really openly collaborate between different organizations. Here, the first lesson of my first story. Because of an open source community, it's a way to become competitive against big fish. So let's see another story. MQTT. You certainly know this protocol, communication protocol in the IoT again. Actually, I used to work for IBM, and in late 90s, I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and next to my office, actually, it's just next building, we had some guys who were building something, doing communication, machine-to-machine communications. And they used to name their system MQ series. Nobody knew it, nobody used it. But few guys at IBM and maybe few other developers outside, but very, very few guys. And it's still like that for years. And then when you check the MQTT Google trend, you see that it was pretty flat for years, for 10 years later. And then something happened around 2011, sorry. What did happen? Actually, IBM decided to open source MQTT under this MQTT name. And immediately start growing. And because people discovered that, wow, it's pretty small framework, pretty efficient, simple model, okay, subscriber publisher model, so it's pretty easy to manage. You can use any kind of layer, like HTTP layer, to communicate. Okay, we can have some devices, can talk with a broker, and let's it works. And then in less than 4 years, it has been a standard. And the standard has not been created by IBM. It has been created by a community of users. Because these guys were believing on this solution, open source solution. So it's another story, also important story to understand how the strengths of a community, how a community can really help gaining visibility and recognition. So, now, why it works this way? It works because open source also provides some governance and some best practices. I will not enumerate all of them. Some of them, transparency. You know, when you join a community, you know what these guys are doing, because you can follow their plan. You can understand why they made this decision, for which reason. Even if you see one of your competitors in the project, you can join the project. Nobody can fire you from that, because the idea is to work openly. And it's also a good sign when a competitor joins a project which is built by another guy, because at some point it shows that, yeah, he believes also that the solution that the other guy is building is pretty stable. And the last not least is the meritocracy aspect. The fact that you know that people who are involved in this project deserve their position. It's not just because you are the good friend of the project lead, or because your company put lots of money on the table that you are part of this project. You are part of this project because you understand the philosophy, you understand the vision, and you also already shown a strong contribution to this project. So, I should not ask you this question, because I mean that if you are all here, you are all supposed to use open source software at some point. The interesting aspect is this number. Forrester and Gardner said that in one of the last study, that actually today, 80 to 90% of people are using in their product open source software, which is pretty amazing. So we are in the mainstream today. Okay? Now the question is, who in this room is a good citizen in open source? By good citizen, I mean, who is writing bugs? Who is writing documentation for a software you are using? Raise your hand. Okay, so the average is not 80 to 90 in general, it's around 40%. Okay, so the problem is here is open source must be seen as a puppy. It's a gift. The guy who builds the software, if he make you a gift. And now you can only play with it, it's lots of fun, but if you only play with it, it will die. So you need to feed it. You need to take care of it. And so part of your role when you join a project, when you join a community, it's to take part of that and to take care of it. So let's talk about the trade-offs. And I like from some time to find some acronyms, and I decided to find this one, free. So free why? Because F like feed. Yes, when you are in a community, you need to feed the community. If you really want to have your project use accept, you need to feed it. So you need to create getting started. You need to complete your documentation. It's very important. You need to show the heartbeat of your project using social medias, blog post, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these kind of channels that we have today to communicate with different people. And it's an important way to show that you are in life, that your project is progressing. Or like respect. Respect the community is very important as well. So the fact that you are here, it's a way of showing that you respect your community. But I will say it, I like to take this quote from Eric Gamma, one of the fourth who built the design patterns, because he used to say that every bug report is a love letter. Just imagine a second, okay? You have a guy who was sitting in his office and at some point found you. Good point. Then he decided to download your stuff because he found that your very short summary is pretty interesting. Okay, let's download his stuff. Then he installs it, he runs it, and finally found a bug. Two options. You throw it away, or you say, no, it's pretty cool stuff actually. Let's just write a bug. Maybe I will get an answer. So if you don't answer immediately to this kind of love letter, forget it. The guy will not continue after that, obviously, because he had a dream that you will answer to his love letter. So it's important to not forget and to respect your community. E, like embrace your community. Yes, go to this kind of conference. The picture is not the Trump event, it's an Obama event, right? So just for your information. So go to the conferences, organize local events, interact with user groups, meet other communities. So even if you are part of another community, when you join this one, that's fine. Or if you are part of this one, you go to another one, it's important to meet this other community just to learn from them or to communicate about your stuff. Because you will learn, you might find some interesting people in another community as well. If you stay only all together, it might be difficult. Engage them. People like to be engaged. So you have to organize workshops, you have to organize webinars. People like that, they can watch your presentation afterwards when it's recorded. Organize hackathons. They also like to challenge you. Organize challenges like that, you can challenge them. Okay, and they can learn more about your stuff. It's how you build a community. So a community doesn't come from free. It's the trade-off, okay? So now you can say, okay, I'm on my own then. How can I manage that? Okay, I'm lucky I'm with ROS Foundation, so they will help me. Yes, actually the role of foundation is to help you. It's mainly our main role. We're not technical guys, we trust you for that, but we are helping you doing some work. So yes, when you are publishing on open source, on GitHub, it doesn't help. Today, I made this screenshot 2 days ago, we have 100 million of repositories. So people are not waiting for you, just for your information. Sometimes people ask you, I say, no, I cannot open source now because my code is not completely clean. Forget it. Nobody is watching your code, okay? Nobody is waiting for you. So publish it and start cleaning it in front of others. Like that, you show some activities, and you might have some good feedbacks from people who might find your code. And then, as I said, go through all these steps to communicate about your work. So, foundation. one of them. I can only talk about this one, but I'm sure that you can see other foundation. We are taking care of more than 360 projects. We have more than 280 members, 1,500 of committers. So all these guys work in different companies, but they work for the same goal, open source development. And we are only 30 taking care of that worldwide. We have interesting channels, 1.5 million of downloads. Eclipse is not only an IDE, just as a reminder, guys. Because sometimes when I ask to people, do you know Eclipse? They say, yeah, we know the IDE. IDE is maybe 30% of our projects. 30%. All the rest is about IoT, about modeling, about plenty of other subjects, very interesting subject. And now we have an IA domains, automotive domains, and so on. So check it out. 2 million of unique developers. We have a rough estimation of 5 million of active users. And we have a pretty active newsletter every month, 360K of subscribers. So what a foundation delivers, and you can find that with any kind of foundation. Of course, IP management, IP licensing is very important, because if you want to have your code used by somebody else, you must be sure that the code is clean. It's business-friendly clean. So the copyright I made, the license are compatible, all these kind of things has to be made. So it's a part of the job of foundation to help you checking that out. Governance as process, again, all this explanation of the best practices. If you are on your own, somebody decide to force the door to come in when if it doesn't deserve it, you cannot do anything. With the foundation is here to protect you and to protect the process. Community development, as I said, we have plenty of channels. And of course, the infrastructure is here also to support your code, to support your builds, to support your results. And on top of that, we have some strategic focus, as I mentioned. So these days, we are mainly involved in cloud, in the IoT, where we found robotics projects. Automotive as well, we have lots of activities, and I saw several presentations these days. Today, about automotive, so check it out. I think there are lots of interesting things going on. And tools, modeling, development tools, development on the cloud. So it's a kind of community we're helping. And it's working groups. So working groups mean that there are people who are interested not only working on one project, but they want to think together how they can make several projects working together, or how can they find the best way to organize all these projects. For example, in the automotive, we have all about autonomous driving things. So certification, simulation. Okay, if these guys cannot talk to each other, it's pretty shame. If we can have a certification with some simulation working together, it might be much better. So let's try to work together. So these guys try to define some common work, some common vision to interact more easily all together. So I'm here more especially to talk about this working group. We are launching an industrial robotics working group in collaboration with these 4 different projects. 2 of them that I know pretty well, ROS-I and Basis. I think you heard about ROS-I these days. Basis maybe not. They're also defining a standard around Industry 4.0. Rosen, you heard about that, and ZeroNet as well. So you can hire Thilo to talk about that with you. If you want to have more details about this working group and you want to join, please contact one of my 2 colleagues, Gail or Marco. They will be happy to help. Or myself, if you want, I will put you in touch with them, no problem. So, and I will conclude that. Open source is a journey, it's not a destination. So think about that when you are participating to this kind of communities, when you try to be involved in this kind of community, that it's important for you to show your involvement. And when you, for example, you download something and you are happy that the code is working, it's good also to send a comment to the developers mentioning that you enjoy the code. And then, okay, after that you will see how it will be a success or a failure. I'm done, and thank you very much.